Hey, what's up, guys? Sean here with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Your boy is back, and we got some more great pocket change finds to talk about, all coming on eBay. You better believe it. Man, these things are hot. And if you like the hunt the same way that I do, then you're in luck. You might come across some of these coins going through your pocket change, coin roll hunting, going to the local shows, maybe cherry picking something really nice from a dealer table that maybe they didn't know what they really had. You better believe it. This is a great hobby where you could take advantage of that and do whatever you want. I would say there's two ways to skin a cat, I suppose. One is you could add something pretty nice to your collection. Secondly, and that's why we're all here, you got to figure that these coins have some value, some small little value, some much bigger value. You put those two values together and you got yourself at-home business, I guess. That's how I got started. And the hobby's fun. And this is the type of hobby where you can monetize in a great big way to not only supplement your daily 9 to 5, but also, if you wanted to, you could turn it into a full-blown entrepreneurial type of affair. And we're going to take a look at the last 24 to 48 hours of activity on eBay. All the coins discussed in this video, of course, are ungraded, so that's very important. Just recognize that die varieties and mid-airs don't need to be graded at all. All right, so before we jump in, quick little shout out to channel sponsor Whatnot, one of my favorite websites to use. The live social media experiment is high and tight and very explosive. Live auctions at your fingertips. Go ahead and sign up today. Get yourself $15 off your first item, courtesy of your boy Blue. And that's okay. If you don't like using the QR code that we have on screen, good luck, good news. We also have the clickable links down below in the description box, and it's also going to be pinned to the comment section of this video. Come join the revolution. I do pretty much weekly shows every Friday night, especially the night that kick off the weekend couldn't be any hotter, as we sell some pretty nice U.S. type coins, varieties, currency, you name it. We run the whole gamut on this thing, and it's a lot of fun. Come join us today. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some of these selections. We got nearly 2 dozen to talk about. Here's one, ladies and gents, that I'm sure a lot of you aren't aware of. 1937D Buffalo Nickel. The coin doesn't appear to be in like super tip-top shape. Obviously this one's been around a block, but we're all familiar with two feather buffaloes. Okay, a overpolished third feather is what makes these things happen. A lot of the earlier dates is normally where you would find two feather buffaloes. This is an actually very later date, and one that isn't currently recognized as a Favaz Stanton number just yet. This one is actually referred to as a 2.5 feather because you can see a partial feather there on the obverse of the Indian. So this particular case, again, just an overpolishing of the die, therefore weakening the actual third feather design or device on there. So when it strikes up coins, it's not going to strike up a full third feather. So in this particular case, this one right here is quite scarce. Beyond 1930, 1930S, I believe, is the last recognized FS listed third two feather variety. So anything beyond that, is up for, I guess, discovery. And that's what the 3070 is right here. $42.99 is what the sale price is. There was actually a community on Facebook of Buffalo Nickel enthusiasts, and they are identifying other dates that have 2 or 2.5 feather variety types that you normally wouldn't see in a Cherry Picker's Guide variety book. Pretty cool find right here. And again, you really have to keep your eyes peeled on something like this. Next one right here, this is something you could probably find not only in circulation, but good news. This is a coin today that you can find in a general standard mint set. 1970S is a pretty cool mint set. You know, it's got the 40% Kennedy half dollar, which is only available in that particular set. None of them were ever made for circulation use, so that's pretty significant. The other coin to look out for is the one you see on screen, 1970s Lincoln Memorial set. No, this is not the small date variety. That one is pretty cool in its own right. But this one right here is a notable Repunched mint mark variety. Okay, when we look at this image, not the next image, but this particular image right here, you can see the secondary Denver mint mark is punched north of the primary. You can tell because this one has two upper curls on there. Pretty neat, very strong, and these have a little bit of value, but they are quite common in these mint sets, so make sure you're looking for these. This particular example sold here on eBay for $16.95. Can you imagine going through dozens of these mint sets and finding a whole bunch of these? You're going to rake in some serious cash as a result. Next one that we have here, you just caught a small little glimpse of what we have here. This one has been a mainstay for the last 4 years, and I'm happy to say that it is still making some sort of impact for, I guess, hunters and searchers out there. The 2021 Philly Washington Crossing the Delaware design. It's one of the most attractive designs here recently, even beating out a lot of the good old national park quarters, and even probably blowing away the entire American Women Series set in itself. This one right here, this particular error, I guess, became the subject of a lot of conversation and a lot of furious hunting as well, as at one point, this particular error sold for as high as $300 4 years ago. And this particular coin looks to be in really good shape. I'm going to say it's kind of like a mid-state, kind of lower end coin there. Nothing too crazy high end, but we are looking for that big, ginormous die chip right on top of Washington's hat there. Commonly referred to at the time and even today as a crown die chip. Washington's wearing a crown of like hamburger patties, all stacked very neatly on top of his hat. This particular example right here ended up selling for $55 with a pair of bids. Not worth zero, considering that 4 years later that the folks that wanted this coin had already received it. And, as time goes on, normally prices would drop to kind of like a floor that is healthy for the market. Somewhere in that $40 to $60 range seems to be where a lot of these are falling right now, which is good news. You can pick up a coin that, again, at one point sold for hundreds of dollars. And if you did find these in circulation today, good job. Congratulations. You got yourself probably enough money to fill up a gas tank in a Honda Civic. So pretty neat one here. Next one that we have here, we love ourselves some early classic coins. We have 1838, kind of a transition from the matron head to the braided hair set. This particular one right here is the Newcomb 10 variety. Noted by a couple very noticeable die cracks on the reverse. But this one also has the doubled profile, which is simply machine doubling on there. But pretty cool to see nonetheless. Very nice condition piece here. It's showing its wear, but it has plenty of detail remaining to confidently give it kind of like a VF30 grade. This particular one ended up selling for $67.99. This time with 20 total bids, so a very active sale here in the last 24 hours. Next one that we have here, probably by far one of my favorite items. And this is it's a Capital Plastics holder from 1934 to 1967 Lincoln cents. So if you looked at the dates, they're all pretty attainable, in really nice high-grade condition. But to actually see one of these 100% complete is a true marvel. And then they ended up selling it for $200. And it just so happens in this particular set that there were a couple coins that had some, they call them clips on there. So these are little mint errors, a 1964D and then another 1964D. There are actually two of them in this particular collection here. So the whole thing, again, $200. Really neat to see. The capital holder by itself, although this one looks like it was pretty well used, normally sells for between $30 and $50 by itself. The holders are very collectible by themselves, but when you have like a full set put together that's really cleanly executed, this individual, this person, the seller, ended up doing really well selling this one. Here's just a beautiful looking 1864 Indian head cent. This is actually they call it a thick white cent, which is made of copper and nickel. And they did this for the first number of years, all the way up through 1864, and then they transitioned to the Bronze Era during the same year. So that's where you can find like the L on ribbon. They also have a non-L on ribbon type of the bronze. But this one right here is the white cent variety. Now this one shows a little bit of strike through on the obverse, right on the feather tips of the headdress that you're seeing Lady Liberty wear here, along with a few of the letters like of in America, showing a little bit of a strike through. And this is generally an area where there's a lot of impacted grease during a strike. So this one right here, a beautiful type coin, I would say. There's not too much issues here, a few little gunks and stuff on there. But this one ended up realizing a sale of $133.50 with 9 bids. Beautiful item there. Pretty neat one here, although I would say that this one, you're not going to have too much success trying to find this just casually going through change. The coin is way larger than what it's supposed to be for its denomination, but it's a 1998 Lincoln Memorial cent. Not only is it broadstruck outside of the collar, keep in mind, is what keeps the coin in the striking chamber or area before that particular action occurs. But you'll also see a pretty nice indent there with a little bit of a brockage. So there was the coin and maybe another coin that overlapped and then restruck. There was just so much things that went wrong during the ejection process of the coin being struck. It happens, mint presses, they malfunction at a given time. You just never know when it's going to happen. But with the particular volume that the U.S. Mint cranks out on a lot of coins, something like this is pretty easy to see and understand. Now, in theory, there's supposed to be a second coin that fits this one like a lock and key. Whether that coin exists or whether it was found out during the quality control process and removed manually remains to be seen. But this is overall just a really neat mint error. Call it a dual error of sorts. And this one selling for $52.98. Keeping in mind that this is like one of the more common dates for not only broad strikes, but also incidental things like indents and, various other mint errors of that type. Next one that we have here, my goodness, this thing is something that just came out of the blue. Consider it probably, quite possibly, one of the neatest, probably historically important discoveries today. This one's sold by ND Numismatics, NDN, as you can see on the logo there, top left corner. Had sold a number of items here. This particular one kind of like squeaked through. And it's a 1952D Washington quarter. Yes, it's silver. It's a little bit older. And you can notice some weakness in the strike here. Like, hey, what's up with the rim? The rim is kind of like partially missing under the date. Going to where in God we trust is. You can see a fair amount of weakness on the top of Liberty. And you also see the same on the reverse. So we could kind of come to the conclusion that maybe this is like a thinner planchet or a tapered planchet. It did weigh out at 4.92 grams, so it is definitely underweight here for what it is supposed to be. And then I was like thinking, I'm like, is it really a tapered planchet? Could this explain anything else? Until I looked at this side image of the edge of the coin. I'm like, holy crap. You know what this is? This is a coin that was struck on dime thickness, 90% silver stock. That, my friends, is something that we only see on like 1970 Washington quarters and maybe one other date of that. I believe 1965 or 66 was the other date. But this is the first documented time where we've seen this on a pre-1965 silver. So this one, ladies and gents, is quite interesting. And I'm going to go on a limb and say that there are probably more of these in existence. It just so happens that we're lucky enough to witness this, that there was for sale this one lone example here in 90% silver, and the coin is in such beautiful, brilliant, uncirculated condition that this one kind of gives us exactly all of the chops that we need to know what to look for when we're out there, not only hunting our silver, because we're all stacking silver these days with the price of silver going up the way it is, but also if you're at the coin shops and you want to look through their inventory for things very similar to this, I got great news. Now you know what to look for. So this coin here, this discovery, kind of represents our current, I guess, price range on this. It's sold for $199.95. The 1970 Denver quarters that were struck on dime stock thickness clads, we're selling somewhere in like the $60 to $80 range. Sometimes they'll creep up to $100 if it's mid-state. But this is really cool. Look out for this. The coin is going to be dime thick, which is not thick at all. It's a very thin coin compared to all the other Washington quarters. This is a neat one. Such a crazy coin to just kind of come out of the blue. And I'm willing to bet there's going to be some more to find out there. Another neat one, also from ND Numismatics, 1943D Jefferson nickel. This is, of course, the 35% silver and manganese alloy. This is the special wartime mix that they had come up to help ration nickel for the war efforts. Although they had a lot of issues with the annealing and just the overall planchet quality was not there. It was quite bad and very crappy, to be absolutely honest with you. So when you look at this one, you can see a delamination on the obverse there going right across Jefferson's head. And, again, that's due to the impurities in the alloy mix, something that was very commonplace with these particular planchets. This one right here, by the way, is selling for $33.94, and the coin is in absolutely beautiful shape as well. If you squint hard enough, you'd tell that this one maybe has full steps, but really does not. Next one that we have here, again, another coin that has lived in the lore of like really neat finds, and boy, man, these things were really expensive when they were first discovered. 2022, these are Philadelphia minted Wilma Mankiller quarters with the Cud die breaks. You either had the single-sided obverse Cud right on top of Washington's head, or you also had the double-sided ones where the big Cud went through the star on the reverse. Those, of course, at one point sold for in excess of $1,000 3 years ago. Things have settled down a little bit. These ones here are selling for about $300 to $400 at one point. So, kind of more of a bargain if you elected you wanted to pick one up for your collection, because I think these things are neat as hell. This one ended up selling for $147.90. Still a pricey little nugget if you found one in your change today. Again, congratulations on the find. It's a good, fair chunk of money, but most importantly, it's one of the coolest finds of the last 5 years. 1960 Proof Franklin $half. My goodness, such a beautiful coin. The Proof Franklin $half have always been just a really nice looking coin, and it didn't matter what date it was. So if you know what to look for, there's a few varieties to be on the lookout for. Of course, the big one's the 1961 doubled die reverse FS 801. However, there are some minor doubled dies to look out for. 1960 is one of those dates, so just look on the reverse. This one is DDR number 1. Highlighted with this kind of doubling that you see here on some of the letters, especially in E pluribus unum, is one of the strongest areas of this doubling. This coin right here ended up selling for $39.95 and 95 cents, which is not too bad considering that, just the coin by itself is worth roughly half that, if maybe a little bit less. So again, some pretty good value here with the variety, kicks it up a notch. It's not a Favaz listed cherry picker's guide variety, but rest assured that it is still going to be a coin that's going to have a lot of liquidity because of the type it is. Pretty neat one here. This is a copper plated zinc era Lincoln cent here that was struck through a very late stage cap die. The die, the cap on the die that is stuck to the die at this point is withering away to nothing, and it's just wrinkling on itself. And it looks pretty neat when it's striking up these coins. This one you can actually see full liberties. So at that point, it was probably full exposure of that section of the die as it was striking the coin. But you can tell on the reverse, just a truly magnificent hammered strike on this one. This one right here ended up selling for $32.50, which is kind of like the regular going rate for any sort of cap die strike of this type. Next one that we have here, this is a great one to be on the lookout for if you're casually going through a mix of just lower grade Indian head cents. Just trying to maybe look for specific dates, or maybe you want to cherry pick some varieties. This 1897 right here is one of the more common ones. So there's two things going on here. This one was sold primarily for having the clip planchet, which you can see right over the word of on the obverse there. But this one also has the filled in bottom of the 9, which is a little bit of a die chip. I believe this is a snow variety based off of that. I just, for the life of me, am not remembering what it is. But this one here, pretty neat. You're able to cherry pick something like this for around $1 or so. I mean, you're going to do really well because this one ended up selling for $17.60. A pretty nice little flip for just an initial investment of $1 or so. You can't really go wrong here. And again, with this kind of like shallow clip type, I see these all the time on Indian headsets. They're actually quite common, and this is a good way to really supplement your eBay store. All right, so we do talk about currency. Our first one up on the list is this 2001 later modeled $10 bill with a large head, but it's not colorized. Man, check out that overprint. It is way off kilter. There's some massive misalignment here of that overprint. You can see the serial numbers and the green district seal just kind of pushed up and then to the left, which is not the right spot tolerance-wise for these. So things like this do occur when there's a little bit of a shift in the sheet on the stack. It happens. The printing of paper is a rather imperfect process on its own. Here's a little bit of the reverse there. The note has circulated to an extent. This particular one right here ended up selling for actually a really good sum of money for $158.20, 15 times the actual face value of the note. If you notice it in your wallet going through your money that you pulled from the ATM, that's going to end up paying some pretty good dividends. Coming up next here is kind of the steal of the day. It's a full roll of 2023 Philly Extra V Lincoln Shield cents. So these have the little V notch next to VDB initials there at the base of Lincoln's bust. We all know these. This is a full roll of 50 of them. Right now, the going rate on these on the secondary market, raw, is like $8 to $12. So you would figure, roll of 50 should be doing pretty well here. Well, the seller had this one for $400 or best offer. What ended up being accepted was an offer for $100. That is $2 per coin. This is kind of like the best case scenario, the dream of every, eBay reseller, that's out there, that's looking to pick up inventory in bulk. You can take these, resell them, relist them back onto your eBay, and do $13.99 buy it now, free shipping. You can't really go wrong, and people are still sending these to the grading companies if they're in nice shape. So yeah, $100 was accepted. I'm willing to bet the seller was probably a little hard up for money and was willing to take any offer that came to the table. Pretty neat one here. I found quite a few of these. They're really neat to find. 1882 O over S over mint mark VAM 4 variety. And this one is actually in pretty decent shape. It looks to be like a high-end AU 58, somewhere in that area. Morgan dollars have always been a fun little coin to hunt through. They're large and silver and all these VAM different varieties and, die pairings. It makes it really, really, really cool coin to look through. And you put all that stuff aside, you end up finding, a banger like this one. And by the way, there's a close-up. You can see that inner curl of the S in that middle part of the O right there. And that is the main diagnostical feature of this over mint mark. This one right here ended up selling for $150 for a coin that possibly you could pick up for about $35 in today's market in that condition. So that is one heck of a way to make some extra money. $100 net profit is what you're going to realize here on something like this. And the note that is now officially creeping up higher and higher and higher. We were at like $40 to $50 on this thing about a month or two ago, and we are at whole new levels on this one. 2017A, $2 bill, and they have to be star notes. And usually it's the San Francisco Stars. Top left star, check that out. It is filled in. They call that an overinked star, and grading companies do add that to the grading label as an overinked star. So these things right here, man, they are popular. People are picking them up, and I have a feeling these things are going to be drying up here really quick. I would say within the next year or two. You're going to see less of these available, especially in nice grades on the secondary market, let alone being able to find one out there. $2 bills, you kind of have to pry them away from banks to begin with. So, finding stars are going to be half the battle here. So this one right here, ladies and gents, ended up selling, get this, for $95.35, 15 bits. All right, this thing was bid up to that amount. For all the other ones that have sold for $40 to $50, now we are at a new threshold, $95.35. Man, it's game on. It's crazy to see this market evolving right before our very eyes. There's a little bit of a close-up of that filled star. Keep in mind the star is supposed to have a little white circle in the middle. And there's a reverse. Again, just a perfect note. Uncirculated at its best. To close things out, we got a couple of cuds here. 1944 Lincoln wheat set. Nice size cud right there at the base of Lincoln's bust. Seems to be a very common area where there's a lot of die cracks and things like that, wear and tear to the dies, where a piece of the die would fall off. So this is one of them here. $42.82 with 10 bids for this example. From the same seller, we have actually a very scarce date here, 1952D Lincoln wheat set with that cud in the same placed area. On this one, nice coin too. It's maybe XF40. This one right here, same price, $42.82. This time with 11 bids. We also have this Jefferson nickel that was struck through, again, a very late stage capped die. You can see some of the wrinkling of the die at this point because it's really razor thin and it doesn't stay together for very long. It ends up crinkling on itself, and then it'll produce some pretty wicked things when it strikes actual coins. This one right here realizing $67.90. And then the final piece of the day, this bad boy here, 1981 $20 bill. Man, you kind of figure we know what's missing on here. There's no serial numbers and there's no seals or nothing like that. It's because everything was printed on the back of the sheet. That is the serial numbers, the seals, and all that great stuff. So, yeah, kind of a common issue, a mistake back in the day, the BEP, especially during the 70s and 80s. Their quality control was, I don't know. I loved it. I loved it because it was hot garbage, and we get to find things like this, in strap packs back in the day. I was a little bit too young to realize this, but shoot, we all come across some pretty interesting stuff during our time. This is another one here, and the whole sheet is affected, by the way. So all 50 notes or 32 or however many's on there affected by this thing. The sheet was just upside down in the stack, and then the overprint printed on the back here. $394, 16 bids. No big surprise. These things are just wildly wacko on the secondary market. Prices are through the roof. And that's going to go ahead and do it. Again, the information in this video is for educational purposes only, not financial advice. And I am your host, Sean, with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you guys got a little insight. Maybe you got some of the juices flowing inside of you. Like, man, I want to find some of this stuff. Let me turn me loose, boss. And I wish you guys the best of luck in all of your hunting endeavors. And go ahead and find your treasure, because it's a lot of fun, and we all get that natural high of doing this. I'm your host, Sean. Thank you guys so much for all of your views and support. I will see you guys next time. And until then, we are discovering together. Take care, guys.